At a luxury condo's Christmas Eve party, a manager forces a janitor to pick broken champagne glass with his bare hands, drawing blood in front of residents. A probationary concierge steps between them, halts the event, and gets suspended while getting the janitor to safety, revealing he carries insulin in a small cooler for a next morning clinic appointment. Her quiet line in the marble lobby leads to small changes that stick, even as her job hangs by a thread. Just a quick note before we begin: like, share this with a friend, and subscribe for more. Also, let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. It always amazes me how far these stories travel. The champagne tower went first. The top flute shivered, then the whole crystal column slipped and rained onto the marble. It sounded like ice cracking on a lake. The quartet stopped mid-carol. The manager's heel pinned the janitor's glove. "Not with that," he said. Low but sharp. "Photos. No lint. Hands only. We're already behind." The janitor, a thin man with salt at his temples, paused. His eyes flicked to the crowd of residents on velvet chairs. He went to reach for the glove anyway. The manager ground his shoe harder. He bent and snatched the glove by the fingertips, and with a small twist he flung it into the trash bag, tied to the bar cart. "Hands," he said. "Move." The janitor knelt. He pressed 2 fingers between shards of glass and began to gather them. Blood showed up almost immediately, bright and tiny. Mara saw blood bead on his fingers. She felt it before she really saw it, a small heat at the base of her neck. It was Christmas Eve. The lobby tree threw soft white onto everything. She was on day 23 of probation as lead concierge. Her new badge sat cool against her collarbone. She had practiced smiling through big-ask residents, and at $11 oat milk requests, she knew every elevator camera and which one caught the good angles for holiday photos. And she knew the manager. Keen, pressed charcoal suit, the kind of man who said make it a memory and meant the review, not the people. Her son had texted at 5 dawn closed, made it to a friend's house. "Love you." She had typed a thumbs up and a heart and looked at the clock. She had 3 more hours. "Careful," someone said, not to the man on the floor, but to the waitress with the tray of macarons. Mara's fingers curled on the edge of the desk. Her radio murmured in her ear. Someone asked for the valet. Someone else wanted the playlist louder. She stepped out from behind the desk. "Stanchions," she called to the doorman, tapping her wrist like a metronome. "Now." He blinked once, then jogged, hauling the velvet ropes. Mara moved toward the fallen tower. Her flats slid a little on wine. She planted her feet. "Give me your hands," she said to the janitor, soft but direct. He shook his head and reached for another shard. The manager leaned down again. "We're live in 5, Mara," he hissed. "Don't start." She didn't look at him. She crouched and held out a towel from her back pocket. "Hands," she repeated. Her heart thudded, visible in her throat. "Do you hear me?" the manager said. "It's streaks with gloves in photos. No streaks. No lawsuits. Stand down." Mara took a breath. "No glass with bare hands in my lobby." Around them, the quartet shifted their bows and waited. 2 kids in miniature blazers whispered, eyes wide. A woman in red held her phone low. Camera on. The manager's mouth flattened. "This is an event. You follow me or you go home." Mara reached back and took 2 signs from behind the bell cart. "Wet floor," she read. She flipped one upright and slid it into place with her foot. She nodded at the bandleader. "Hold 2 minutes." The bandleader's eyebrows rose. He nodded back and lowered his violin. Mara lifted the bar cart's trash bag and fished out the glove. It was damp and smelled like lemon cleaner. She slapped it into the janitor's palm and kept her voice level. "Put this on and get the broom. We'll sweep. We'll mop. We'll wait." The janitor hesitated. He looked at the manager. He slid on the glove. "Absolutely not," the manager said. He stepped into Mara's space. "You're not in charge here." Mara didn't step back. "Move the residents left. Close the doors to the west corridor. Bartender, hold pause," she said. The bartender froze, bottle midair, then set it down. "We do not stop service," the manager said through his teeth. "We have people paying $10,000 a month to be here. You think they want to stare at your caution tape?" Mara didn't have tape. She had signs and a line, and her body. She stood over the glass. "They're going to stare at you making a man bleed in front of a tree." His laugh was a dry click. "You want to play this?" "Better than playing emergency room on marble," she said. His head tipped like he was redoing the math in his head. Risk, time, optics. He looked at the residents. He looked at the janitor's hand, the small beads now smearing into pink. "Hand me your earpiece," the manager said. Mara swallowed. Her jaw hurt. She clicked the small black disc off her collar. She placed it in his open palm. "And your badge." She slid the lanyard over her head. He curled his fingers around both. He didn't raise his voice. "You'll hear from HR." "Okay," she said. "You're staying away from my floor," he added. She nodded once. Then she turned to the janitor. "Let's go," she said. She led him to the staff bathroom. "Wait." The manager started, but the doorman had already dropped the stanchions between the crash and the party. The velvet ropes cast small, ridiculous shadows on the marble. The quartet shifted into a softer song without cue. In the bathroom, the air smelled like soap and old paper. The janitor stood like he didn't know where to put his body. He kept his hands held away from his shirt. She opened the cabinet and took out the first aid kit, gauze, antiseptic, tape. Cheap, but there. She wet paper towels under hot water. She pressed warm paper towels to his palms. He flinched. Then his shoulders loosened. He looked like a man who had been holding breath for a long time and wasn't sure he was allowed to let it go. "Name?" she asked. He shook his head. "Doesn't matter," he blinked. "Victor." "Okay, Victor," she said. Any glass stuck, he turned his hands. Tiny mirrors stuck to his skin. "Just little," he said. She dabbed. She picked out what she could with tweezers. She taped what she couldn't. He stared at the wall, at the squashed fly in the corner, at the hairline crack in the tile. "You can't do that again," she said. "No bare glass. Ever." "Boss said," he murmured. "I know what he said," she said. He smiled once, fast. "You're brave," he said. "No," she said, and wrapped another finger. "I'm tired." He huffed a laugh that died in his chest. He used his clean wrist to wipe under his nose. His breath smelled like peppermint. "Where's your stuff?" she asked. He pointed with his chin at a grey backpack parked under the utility sink. It had been wiped clean so many times the fabric looked smoothed out. She reached for it. In his backpack, a blue lunch cooler sweated. She froze. Condensation slid down the plastic like it was its own small weather. "Insulin," he said. "They gave me the good kind now." He cleared his throat. "Can't let it sit out." Her eyes landed on a folded paper next to the cooler. Clinic letterhead. Appointment, December 25, 7:30 a.m. Outpatient. She didn't touch it. She read enough to understand. He saw her see it. He looked at his hands like they were a problem he couldn't get around. "If he sends me home," he said. "I can't." He didn't finish. She nodded. "We're not doing that." He shook his head. "It's fine. It's work. It's just glass. I should have taped the tower tighter." He said the base looked weak. "I told him it was fine." "Victor," she said, "you didn't build the tower." He let out a breath he'd been keeping. He looked smaller once it was gone. She rinsed the tweezers. She threw away pink paper towels. "How far do you live?" 9 stops, he said. "Bus." "Not with your hands," she said. "We'll get a car." He shook his head fast. "No, no. I can bus. I'll put socks over my hands." "Done it." She shook hers. "No." She took out her phone. She booked a car on her phone and paid. He stared at her like she had lit a candle for him. "You don't have to," he said. "I know," she said. Back in the lobby, the quartet had moved to a far corner by the elevators. They played quiet, like a radio in the other room. The bartender had a broom now and worked around the edge of the stanchions. Residents stepped around the signs, annoyed but contained. The manager stood by the tree, talking to a resident with a gold watch and a red dress. He gestured once toward the broken glass like it insulted him personally. Mara kept her head down and moved quick. She grabbed a fresh pair of non-slip gloves from the supply closet and a real broom. She swept along the path they would take to the service exit, bathroom to elevator to curb. "Taxi will be here in 4, she told Victor. "We'll use the side." He nodded and held his hands like a surgeon, bandages bright and clean. They rode the service elevator. The walls were steel and showed their reflections in warps. He watched the floor numbers blink by. At the curb, cold air bit their ears. A light snow had started. It stuck to the cuffs of his pants. He zipped his jacket high with his wrists and kept his hands free like she'd asked. A sedan pulled up. The driver looked at the bandages and didn't ask questions. "I'll text you in an hour," she said, writing her number on the top of the appointment paper with her pen. She handed it back. "Send me your address so the driver knows where to go after." He looked between her face and the paper and the car. "You'll get in trouble," he said. "I already am," she said. He huffed that small laugh again. "Merry Christmas," he said. "You too," she said, and closed the door gently. She went inside, and the cold peeled off her cheeks in layers. Her hands shook with the after of it. She grabbed a mop. She went to the glass. She didn't look for the manager. She put her weight into the handle and moved the water, and the floor went from pink to clear. She put shards into the grey bin, one by one, the way you carry eggs you don't want to drop. The party patched itself. Someone started a low cheer when the bassist took a quick solo. An older man in a blazer told a joke about a turkey. Wrong holiday. Nobody cared. Small things kept the air moving. When the floor was dry, she put away the mop and wiped the baseboards for good measure. Her shirt stuck to her back. Someone had set down a plate of cookies on the bell desk. She didn't touch them. The manager came over eventually, his face emptied out of steam. He handed her a plain envelope. "HR call is at 9 on Monday," he said. "Take your stuff tonight. Don't touch the board." "Okay," she said. He looked like a man who had gotten the thing he threatened and now didn't know what to do with it. He adjusted his cufflink. "They slip," he said, looking everywhere but at her. "People sue. We can't have that." "I know," she said. He nodded once and walked away. He stopped and looked at the stanchions. He left them where they were. When her shift ended, she took the long way out. She leaned her head against the cool of the freight door for a second. Her phone buzzed. A photo came in, Victor's bandaged hands cupping a paper cup of broth. Someone's kitchen behind him. "Home," the text read. "Thank you." She let her breath out in a long line she hadn't known she'd swallowed. The next week, the board emailed a new event checklist. There were small boxes by each line item: gloves, stanchions, signs, broom, dustpan. The subject line was dull. Safety. It was sent to everyone with a key. A clear bin labeled gloves sat under the bell desk. It was the kind with the blue lid that snapped tight. 3 sizes. Nitrile, not powdery latex. Someone had printed a sticker in a nice font. Someone else had organized a drawer of bandages and tape. The quartet came back for New Year's. The band leader put a box of contractor gloves on the bar and said nothing. He just tapped it with his bow. Residents started pausing at the sign. They still stepped around, but they didn't roll their eyes as much. One woman in red returned with a small tote from a pharmacy and slid it under the desk without looking anyone in the face. The manager stopped using live in 5. He started saying, "We'll take a breath." He walked a little slower by the closet. He still cared too much about photos, but he kept his shoes off the gloves. He walked back in with small white bandages and nodded once. He took his time, changing out a bulb at the base of the tree. He didn't call anyone over to do it. He didn't make a show. Mara did the night shift 3 more times without a badge. She wore plain black. She answered the phone anyway. The doorman slid her the earpiece when the manager walked out to take a call. On Monday, HR asked for her version. She told it. She didn't dress it. She didn't drag anyone. She said the words in a row and kept her hands flat on her thighs. A week later, the envelope was not a termination. It was a write-up and a policy. It wasn't fair. It was also a line you could stand on. Her son called that night. He wanted to know if the dorm would open early. She said probably not. He asked if she was still employed. She said for now. He said, "Okay," and told her about a snowball fight he'd lost on purpose. She hung up and went downstairs. She tilted the gloves bin in her hands and felt the weight. It was light and heavy at once. Snow sifted against the revolving door. It stuck in the channels. It made the world quiet for a second. She watched a single flake land on the blue lid and hold there. Perfect. Then turn to water and slide down into the groove.